I'm Emily, and I lost my brother Thomas, or Tom, last year on the 25th of June 2023. Yeah, my brother was just one in a million. He was very outgoing. He had a smile that lit up the room. We'd always sort of joke around with each other. It was amazing, and we were very close from a young age. I used to call him Mummus because I couldn't pronounce my T's properly, and that was my first word. And yeah, we just did everything together when we were young, and even when we were older, we just always had a very attuned sense when each other were doing good and when each other were doing bad. And he was just the person I went to for advice whenever I needed it.
Sounds like you shared quite a lot with each other.
Very much so. I feel like our music sense. He was very much into DJing, loved his music. I can just remember just getting in the car with him and it would just be like this go-kart and he'd be like, come on Em, you want to ride? Let's go, let's go. And he'd just be pumping out music until I was just sitting there like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. But yeah, we shared so much together. I always say we're literally the same person. It's just, I'm the, what do you call it? I say I'm the sensible one, he was the more risk-taking one, but we literally thought the same, felt the same, yeah, just very close.
You said that you lost Tom last year.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of what happened after that? And how you felt?
I mean, my brother was a massive support system last year for me. Sort of, I went through a bit of a relationship breakdown and my brother was there for me. And I'd only just moved back home. And within 3 weeks of moving back home, my brother took his own life. So it very much changed my whole world. I kind of describe when Tom passed as it was like being in sort of like a war movie where like a bomb went off and my eardrums just blew and I didn't know where I was, what I was doing, what day it was. All I knew is I just had to just get stuff done for Tom. I kind of stepped up as the role of parent for my mum, just because I didn't want to actually have to deal with anything difficult. No mum should have to plan their son's funeral. Me and Tom were very protective of our mums and he was very protective of me. So it was kind of like I had to step up then. So it took a lot out of me. I kind of had to park my emotions and how I felt and just give him the respect and dignity he deserved. So therefore, like, I had to plan a vast majority of his funeral on my own, only because I said I wanted his funeral to be biblical. I wanted it to be incredible. I wanted it to like emit everything that Tom was, his music taste, everything, even down to when I spoke to the police and they said like, what religion was he? And I said Rastafari. And then from that point on, everything was just Rastafarian themed. The music, everything went down to having everything that Tom used to DJ and play. And I think for me, it was really difficult as a sister because they always say that you're like the forgotten griever in the family. It was like, for my nan was grieving her grandchild. My mum was grieving her firstborn, her child. And I felt like I had to kind of park everything to make sure everything was perfect for his funeral, that I felt like I was like a month behind everyone. I mean, losing Tom in terms of like the future sense, it kind of changed my whole life perspective. I went from sort of a month prior living in my own house, having a lot of independence, to then going from like, where was I gonna sleep at night? Because I didn't live I then moved out of my house and was living at my friend's house and was living out of my car and like had all my belongings in like bags and everything. And I think nothing prepares you for then having to be vulnerable and asking people for help.
One of those lines of support was the suicide bereavement service of Away Your Mind. How did you find out about the service and what was your kind of entry point into accepting support?
I think immediately after losing Tom, the police obviously got in contact with the doctors and we then got, heard from Mind. We've got a bereavement worker who came to our house within the first week or two of Tom passing. They had lived experience themselves, so it was really good to have that early entry of someone that kind of understood to a degree what you were going through. I'm very lucky that we had that because I think at that point I couldn't even call my doctors or do anything. It was just adrenaline and everything was just getting stuff sorted for the funeral. So it was nice to have that support that came in as a lending ear to just either talk about things you were going through, any sort of queries, or just having a chat about daily life, basically.
How did you feel before that first session with your bereavement worker? What was your kind
Oh.
of thoughts about accepting support? 'Cause it sounds like that's been something that you maybe didn't find came naturally to you, to accept that support.
I think at first I was very much running off adrenaline, couldn't quite understand what had happened. Like, for instance, I'd see my brother's friends and they'd be crying and I'd be like, "What are you crying for? Like, we're all good, like, come on." Like, and they just looked at me like I was a bit crazy. And I feel like before the meeting, I was like, oh no, like someone's gonna like play around with like something that I was trying to mask. And I was really worried that just it was all going to come blurting out, and then I was going to realise, oh my God, I've just lost my brother. So there was a lot of anticipation, I think, because you never want to have this form of support. I never wanted to have to meet someone to discuss suicide, because I never thought my brother would take his own life, you know. So I was very anxious and nervous that I couldn't just play like the happy-go-lucky, everything's fine, everything's good, which I was doing.
I felt like the microscope was very much
Yeah.
focused in on you and your own grief.
Yeah.
So that's how you felt before your first kind of meeting. How did those feelings change as you accessed the support, and how did that kind of help in your journey with your grief? And
Yeah.
led you to?
My sort of bereavement liaison person was Hayley, and it was really great to have Hayley come in and sort of tell me about sort of her experience and share some sort of queries that I wanted signposting on. I think seeing Hayley from a week after Tom passed, leading up to the funeral, I was able to discuss a lot of topics that I was scared to ask my mum about. But hearing sort of Hayley's support, what she was giving me, helped me to sort of consider the things that I wanted to do, like, for instance, like saying goodbye, going to the chapel of rest, doing my speech in front of people I was really nervous about. It's something that I really wanted to do, and Hayley was assessing scenarios as to what would happen if I didn't do it, what would happen if I did do it. But I was very much adamant it didn't matter what was going to happen, I was going to do that speech for my brother, because I knew he would do it for me. Within a month, it was my brother's birthday, so Hayley was sort of helping me to assess like what I would do for his birthday, how I might feel if things get too much. And it was really beneficial, even leading up to the inquest. That was really helpful, because I think no one sort of prepares you for what to expect, like the media and stuff, which is really tough. So Hayley was, I think, the most like supportive during that point, because that was when I was really struggling. And that's how I found out about the youth suicide support group, because I kind of was hitting a loss. I wanted to find young people that had gone through something that I'd gone through.
So let's talk about that group. So I was there for that first group, and you kind of came in, and
Yeah.
I think, tell me what that experience was like for you.
I feel like leading up to it, I was looking for a group, because previously I went to a normal bereavement group, and I think I just walked away from there realising that, because no one there I could relate to in terms of losing someone through suicide, and you kind of left feeling a bit like, I feel worse for going. It felt like from the point of time I lost my brother to now, I was just like, please, someone, I need to find someone that's gone through something I've been through that's similar age to me, so I can sort of relate to them. I was sort of hopeful that this group would be the one for me. I mean, I felt very nervous leading up to it. I feel like I'm quite a confident person, and I sort of mask sort of how I feel internally, but I was really nervous and scared, because yet again, I felt like, oh, what if something comes up that triggers me in terms of like, that I wasn't expecting, that I wasn't ready for. I feel like with my brother, I just thought like, I can't believe I'm having to do this. Like having to go to a group to like reach out and stuff. Because I felt like my brother, if it was the other way around, how would he feel, you know? Like, I wish he'd just spoke to me, sort of thing. And that's when I first met you, and you said, to start off with, we're all now part of a group that we never wanted to be a part of. And that was exactly what I'm trying to describe now, is that like, I never wanted to be a part of this group, but it kind of just took the anxiety and nerves away, because I thought everyone's feeling exactly the same, and everyone's took that leap of courage to go, no, I'm going to go to this group, and hopefully I can find people that I can relate to and that understand what I'm going through. So that's sort of how I felt leading up to the first meeting.
And of course, you've kept coming back to that group.
Yeah.
So, it seems like it has offered something to you. How are you feeling now you're kind of 6 months into the group and kind of come along and you've built those relationships with people that attend?
It gave me a source of support that I feel like in the early days, you blurt out things, everything's going 100 miles an hour. And now, obviously I'm a year into losing my brother, I felt like I needed a safe space where I could sort of express how I was feeling, that maybe now I can't really directly express to like my friends or my brother's friends or my mum, because I've always been a support system for them, but I haven't allowed myself to like be as open as them. So when I met everyone else at the group, I've been able to like build relationships. I can like sort of relate to loads of different things about each of the individual stories, which is good. And even things that I hadn't really processed, they came to the surface, and it was good to get out, but also just to laugh as well, or to discuss certain things like suicide loss. A lot of people's response to it can be very varied. You know, like any normal death, we don't get the stigma you do with suicide. I felt like when my brother died, I had to fight against the stigma that my brother died via suicide, let alone what happened with him. But I felt as someone grieving, I had people not really give me the easiest at times. Or someone said to me once, oh, I hear you lost your brother, are you better now? And it's like, no, just because on the surface I look like I'm coping, like that'll be something I carry with me forever. And I think that's what the people in the group sort of are going through. It's not just losing the person and the trauma and what happened that day you lost them, it's everything after. It's people's response to your own grief. You know, I find that I said to myself, I don't want my brother to just be a statistic. And I don't want to be a statistic of someone that's lost my brother and have to fight against a system that sort of doesn't give me much empathy compared to if I lost someone through a disease or something, like a cancer or a heart attack. And obviously losing someone young is very different to losing someone old. And obviously in my group, there's a vast majority of people that have experienced suicide of any age. So this group, I felt like I could relate to them because they'd lost someone through suicide. You have different questions when you lose someone to suicide than you lose someone through something else. And I feel like that group's been really like pivotal and helpful for me to truly understand my own loss and to help other people through their loss. You know, some people might be in the early stages of losing someone to suicide. Someone might be a little bit later than me. It's good to get that grasp and build connections with these people, which has been really great. And obviously you guys who run it as well, because you also have lived experience. So it's nice to know you're going to a group where people understand. It's not like someone at the front that goes through a PowerPoint on, you'll go through this stage and then this stage and then this stage. It's like, oh, how was the last month? And you're like, actually it was rubbish because I had my brother's anniversary and I felt horrendous. And you're like, I can remember when sort of I was leading up to an anniversary, or you've got other people leading up to an anniversary, and you can sort of prep them for how you're going to feel, which I don't think you can get in other groups to that degree.
I think it's all about that mutual support, because everybody's at a different point in their year, in their kind of grief, and like you say, varying anniversaries and bits and pieces that come up. So everybody needs a different kind of level of support at different times.
Yeah.
And I hope that you've found it the same as me, where the group seems to pull together for that person that needs help on any given month, and you can work through those things, and like you say, have a laugh doing it as well, because as much as it is a space for us to hold that grief and to talk about those that aren't here anymore, it is a space to be able to come together and share some of that dark sense of humour sometimes, and find solace through laughter as well.
I can only speak from my experience, but when I lost my brother, my humour carried me through. It was something that me and him always joke. We always had such dark humour, and I remember like my brother's friends saying I did a couple of dark jokes, and they were like, "Can't believe you just said that, but you know what? That is exactly what Walden would say." And I was like, "Exactly," you know. Like, I hope that we, in our group, we all have that little bit of humour that we come out with that helps us just feel normal and to process certain aspects, because it's awful losing someone through suicide. And I feel like you grow a thick skin because you have absolutely no choice but to. And I feel like at points it's good to just be able to just laugh and feel normal, especially around people that are also going through similar things, you know?
And he won't judge you for that.
Yeah, exactly.
So what would you say to somebody who's maybe thinking of attending a youth support group or accessing one-to-one bereavement support in the suicide bereavement service?
I think after losing my brother, I felt very alone, like no one could understand how traumatic, how horrendous it was losing my brother. And I felt like I was just on a mission just to please, can I just find someone that knows how I'm feeling, even to a smidge, you know? And I'd say to someone that wants to attend a group like the suicide bereavement group, I would say you're not alone. You will find your people that have gone through similar experiences, and to have courage. You've gone through literally the worst thing possible and you've overcome so much. What do you lose in just turning up? You don't need to say anything. We'll carry the conversation, I know I do. Just don't lose hope. Have courage, speak out, lean on people. Because I think you know that the person you lost would want you to reach out for help. So you've got to learn from the situation when you lose someone through suicide is that you need to speak to people. I definitely say leaning on general support in terms of reaching out to, say, Mind. I'd say do it, because the sooner you do, the less alone you'll feel. And it's a pathway in to just get the conversation started, to for your help, what you need to be able to continue your life and process and cope with the loss you've gone through.
I think it's really important to keep those conversations going about suicide, because raising that awareness is going to allow people maybe to feel more comfortable accessing support, like you say. That's exactly what we try to do as Norfolk Awakening Mind. It's about that raising awareness and letting people know that it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to speak as well.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, going back to the stigma aspect, I was watching a video the other day, and it was like suicide is like one of the main form of deaths where someone goes, "Oh, how close were you to them though?" Or, "Did you see the signs?" My brother was the most talkative, happy-go-lucky person. He had loads of friends that absolutely adored him. He went travelling. When Tom died, he had people travel from Canada, Australia, New Zealand on one-way tickets to just be there for us. Like, he lit up the room. And I think a lot of people assume that if someone takes their own life, they must have been a social hermit, sat in a room. And my brother was the opposite. Me and him regularly spoke about our mental health. You know, we reached out to each other. I feel like we knew each other's minds. It's just the last split second, hour, moment, he didn't reach out to me because he just didn't want to worry me or didn't want to burden me. And I think that's what we need to break down, is that as a result of the amount of people we're losing to suicide is the stigma that carries with them. I don't want my brother to be remembered for the way he died. I want him to be remembered for the person he was and the love he gave to everyone. I don't want him to be remembered for that last hour or whatever of his life. He deserves to be remembered for every other minute, second that he was alive. And that's what everyone that loses someone to suicide, that person should be remembered for them, not the way they died.
So, Emily, what's next? How are you going to honour Tom? What kind of happens now for you?
So my brother used to tell one of his friends when they were working in Australia about his sort of ethos for life: get stuff done and be good to people. And I think the best way to honour someone is to carry the love that they gave to everyone else and to put it back into the world, to give people hope that out of something really horrendous, I'm going to continue to get stuff done for the both of us, for me and Tom, because that's what he would have wanted, and I'm going to continue to be good to people.